Once upon a time, there was a young girl known as Cinderella. Cinderella's mother died when she was a very little child, leaving her to the care of her father. But Cinderella's father married again, and his second wife was a proud, mean woman. She had 2 daughters who were also vain and selfish. Cinderella's new stepsisters did not love her at all and were very unkind to her. As she grew older, her stepsisters made her work as a servant and even sweep the cinders in the fireplace, which is what gave her her name, Cinderella. Cinderella was a sweet-tempered, good and kind girl, and everybody loved her, except, of course, her cruel sisters and her stepmother. One day, the king of the country gave a ball, to which all ladies of the land were invited. The king hoped to find a wife for his son, the prince. Cinderella's stepsisters got her to help them get ready for the ball, dressing them and doing their hair, but they never thought of allowing her to go with them. "I wish you would take me to the ball with you," said Cinderella meekly. "Take you?" answered the elder sister with a sneer. "It's no place for a servant. Stay at home and do your work." After they left for the ball, Cinderella sat down and cried bitterly. But as she sat there in tears, thinking of how unkind her sisters were, a voice called to her from the garden, and she went out to see who was there. It was none other than her fairy godmother. "Do not cry, Cinderella," she said. "You too shall go to the ball. Bring me a large pumpkin." Cinderella obeyed, and her fairy godmother touched the pumpkin with her wand and turned it into a grand coach. Then she asked Cinderella to go and bring her a rat. The girl obeyed, and with a touch of the fairy's wand, the rat turned into a very smart coachman. 4 mice were then turned into white horses, and 2 lizards into footmen. Next, the fairy godmother touched Cinderella's old ragged clothes, and they became beautiful satin robes. Her old shoes became a charming pair of glass slippers, which shone like diamonds. "Now, go to the ball, my love," said the fairy godmother, "and enjoy yourself. But remember this one thing. You must leave the room before the clock strikes 12, for that is when the spell will be broken, and your dress will return to its original rags." Cinderella kissed her fairy godmother and thanked her. Then she stepped into the coach and drove off in great style. Cinderella was received at the king's palace with great respect. All of the servants bowed low to her, thinking that she must be a very great lady by her dress and her carriage. And then she was shown directly into the ballroom. Cinderella was so beautiful that everybody looked at her and wondered who she was. And the prince asked her to dance with him. Afterwards, he would dance with no one else. Cinderella, though, was careful to leave well before midnight, so she had time to undress before her sisters came home. Her stepsisters told her that a beautiful princess had been at the ball with whom the prince was captivated. They did not know it was Cinderella herself, and she was amused to hear them admire her grace and beauty and say that they were sure she was a royal lady. The prince was smitten with the mysterious woman from the ball, and, in the hope of seeing her again, persuaded the king to give another grand ball. As soon as her sisters had left, Cinderella's fairy godmother appeared again. "You were so good and obedient last time that I shall let you go to the ball again," she said to the young girl. And once more the rat, mice, lizards, and pumpkin were turned into the grand carriage and attendants, and Cinderella, in a satin gown and glass slippers, went to the royal ball. As soon as the prince saw her, he asked her to dance, and would have no other dance partner. As he led her past her two unkind stepsisters, she saw them look at her dress with envious eyes, and she knew that they wished they were as beautiful and as well dressed as she was. The prince would scarcely let Cinderella out of his sight, and Cinderella was so enchanted by him that she lost track of time and left the ball just as the clock was chiming midnight. As she rushed out of the palace, Cinderella lost one of her beautiful glass slippers on the steps. She had no time to stop to pick it up, for the clock had struck midnight and the fairy godmother's spell was already broken. In front of the palace, Cinderella found no coach, only a pumpkin, and the rat and mice ran away quickly when they saw her. While all her fine dress turned back to rags, she had to run home alone in the darkness of the night. The prince was surprised by Cinderella's sudden departure, and he went in search for her. He asked all the attendants in the palace where she had gone, but no one had seen her. He did, however, find the glass slipper on the palace steps, and he knew very well that it belonged to his unknown princess. He felt sure that no one else in the entire land could wear such a tiny, dainty shoe as hers, and so he sent out a herald to proclaim that whichever lady in the kingdom could put on this glass slipper would become his wife. All the great ladies who wished to marry the prince tried to put on the slipper, but with no luck. When the prince reached Cinderella's house, her stepsisters tried to put it on, but it was much too small for their big feet. When Cinderella asked if she might try it, they laughed at her. But the prince, hearing of her wish, sent her to come. She went with her sisters in her poor, ragged dress, and at once put on the slipper. And then the prince knew that he had found the one he was looking for. Soon after, Cinderella was married to the prince with a great royal wedding, and they lived happily ever after.